So the unit I'm focusing on for this project is the philosophical and historical context of the American political system and Constitution. So the audience for this lesson is going to be high school seniors in a government class. And I tried to design this unit of instruction and select tools so that it could be either used in a fully online course via LMS or in a traditional classroom that has tech access. And the overall learning goals for this unit, each lesson will have its own learning goals, but these are the overarching goals for the unit as a whole. After completing this unit, students should be able to explain what the founders learned about government from history and their firsthand experiences with government. And students should be able to take, evaluate, and defend positions on the sources that were consulted and applied during the writing of the Constitution and the formation of our early government. So lesson 1 is going to be the Founding Fathers' views of government. The Web 2.0 tool I'm going to use for this lesson is PlayPosit, and learning goals are going to trace the colonial, revolutionary, and founding era experiences and events that influenced early American government. And secondly, define and provide examples of foundational ideas of American government, including popular sovereignty, constitutionalism, republic or representative government, federalism, and individual rights, which are embedded in founding era documents. So let's get into our first Web 2.0 tool. So our first tool here, PlayPosit, is one I picked up on this term and one that I really enjoy and see myself using quite often in the future. And so here you see I've uploaded a Crash Course US History video that I've been using for years, and I'll just improve on it with a Web 2.0 tool. So what PlayPosit does is it takes videos from elsewhere and it allows you to embed basically like a quiz in there. So I'll get playing this video here and you'll see the video will get going. I'll fast forward along to the first where the first question is going to pop up. Get out of here. Ad. It is still a YouTube video, so you will deal with a few ads here and there. But when the quiz question pops up, it will bring the video to a dead stop. You can decide whether or not you want to allow for rewinding. I did, so you can rewind. But at any rate, you'll have to answer the question before you move on. You can answer it. I can answer it incorrectly, say libertarians, and it'll tell me that I'm incorrect there. Or if you're correct, it'll tell you you are, and it'll give me a report at the end of the student's video as to how they did. And it allows students to watch a video in a way that I think is better than the traditional way, where the teacher will play a video in class and then they'll pause it and put students on the spot and ask them questions. Because a lot of times, maybe it is something slight they couldn't pick up on, so they can rewind to it. If they did, boom, they'll select the correct answer and move on. And in lesson number 2, we're going to be looking at colonial government and its influencers. And this is the only lesson where I had a separate Web 2.0 tool for the online class and one for the traditional face-to-face class. So Web 2.0, we're going to do small group podcasting in the face-to-face class, or we're going to do a recorded Google Hangout in the totally online class. And this lesson continues with the same theme from the first lesson, so the learning goals from this lesson are going to be the same ones left over from lesson 1. So with no more ado, let's get into the tool. One activity that frequently happens in classrooms is we'll give groups of students 2 to 3 questions and have them discuss it with one another and then bring their findings, have them sum it up to the class as a whole. Well, as teachers, we walk around and we hear a lot of those conversations, and some of them tend to be pretty great, but a lot of times I find something gets lost in translation between their individual group talks and when somebody's presenting it to the class as a whole. So to stop it from being lost in translation, what we could do is we could record that with mics and audio on their computers, and then we can upload them for free here on a website like SoundCloud. I think it'd be something that would really enhance the lessons, and it might even enhance those individual group discussions because they know they're being recorded, so they might take their professionalism and their idea generation up to the next level. And as an alternative to that, because I don't think podcasting would necessarily work as well with an online class where students aren't sitting around a microphone in a classroom together, I would suggest doing a Google Hangout, which has the option, if you do it through your G Suite account, you can record a video call on Google Hangouts. And I personally think this is really cool. I've done it here at Western in online classes, and it's neat because as an online student, you don't always develop those relationships that you do face to face. But when you're doing it via a video call, you actually feel like you're getting to know the members of your group a little bit better. So I think this is really cool. It's similar to the podcasting idea. It's a group discussion over topical questions that will be recorded and will be posted at a later date. So similar idea, but I think with the LMS atmosphere, I think this actually makes it possibly a little bit more intimate. Now on to lesson number 3, where we're going to be talking about the Articles of Confederation and moving towards the Constitution. So the Web 2.0 tool for this lesson is going to be Google Docs, which I know sounds a little bit bland, but I did something I think new and unique with it. But we'll get into that when we get into the tools. But the learning goals for this lesson are going to be describe the historical events that led to the drafting and adopting of the Articles of Confederation and early government, and analyze the Articles of Confederation and identify their strengths and weaknesses. And with that, let's get into the tool. So here's a Google Doc I created with a graphic organizer on it. I looked at different Web 2.0 graphic organizers and I didn't really like anything I saw, so I decided, hey, let's make my own with Google Docs. And this is a graphic organizer I've used for the Articles of Confederation in the past, and to great success I've used it on a printed sheet of paper, so I figured, hey, it'd be a great Web 2.0 tool too. It really helps students to get the difference between which powers are specifically the states, which are specifically the national government's powers, and then go ahead and list out some weaknesses as to why the Articles of Confederation were later abandoned. So to use the graphic organizer element, just double click on it, and then you could edit it in here to put in your answers. So say you thought Austin powers was one of the state powers. You can put that answer there and save and close, and it'll update it on there. And I really like this tool because it's a living document that can be edited in real time. Students can communicate right on here. So say I wanted to make a comment to the student that made that answer. I could say Austin powers was a national power, not a state one. And you could just continually leave comments like that throughout. And you could do it real time, or I can leave that comment here when nobody else was on, and then they'll see it when they get on there and they'll be like, oh yeah, Austin powers. Clearly that does go in the national powers. And with that, I can see who typed what on there with change tracking. So it's a really cool, and it does make sure that every student is actively contributing from his or her device. And it works for both in-class students and online students. And the focus of lesson 4 is going to be Federalism and the distribution of powers. So the Web 2.0 tool we're going to be using for this lesson is the Cram Flashcard Set. And I actually shopped around quite a bit for online flashcard sets, and Cram has an element to it that I thought students would really enjoy, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we get into it. I'll focus on that a little bit. But for the learning goals for this lesson, we're going to define federalism and explain the division of powers between the states and federal government, and explain the significance of the Supremacy Clause and the Necessary and Proper Clause. And with that, let's get into the tool. So here we are using the cram.com flashcard set. Vocab is one of the key elements of this lesson, and for me back in the Stone Ages when I was in school, flashcards were a great way to get some of my vocab down. But hey, we're in the Web 2.0 era, so let's use some cool tools to actually get the flashcards down. So under the flashcard section, it's basically just a flashcard set. You say federalism. Hey, I can't remember what that is. Oh yeah, it's government authority shared by national and local governments. And then there's a memorization and test section, which honestly I think are a little bit corny. So I went ahead and just, in lieu of those, I would encourage students to play a game I was able to set up through Cram called Jewels of Wisdom. So let's get into that. So on your left, you have your jewels, which are what give you your score, and they're also your key vocab words. And on the right, you have the definitions, which are in fact expandable. If you click the little button there. So I see a type of government that spreads power among many subunits, such as state, and has a weak central government, aka the U.S. government under the Articles of Confederation. So I know that that's in fact a confederation, but let's say, just to show you, if you get it wrong, it'll just black it out, lock it, and I'll be like, oh geez darn, it's actually Confederation, and then you actually get your score. So using this game here, I think will prove to be both a fun and effective way for students to learn some of their vocab lessons. So the fifth and final lesson in this unit is going to be the road to ratification. And the Web 2.0 tool we're going to be using here is good old Canva. And the learning goals are going to be to understand the reasoning behind the ongoing tensions between Federalists and Anti-Federalists and explain the process of ratification. And with that, let's get into the final Web 2.0 tool. So the last tool we're going to be using in this unit is Canva. So how I envision this being used is I'm going to assign different groups of students as either Federalists or Anti-Federalists. So they're going to be designing campaign posters. They're going to be using these as propaganda during their speeches to sort of cement and defend their stances as Federalists or Anti-Federalists.